Start the recording. Welcome everyone. Today is January 7th, 2021. This is the SIG Instrumentation Community Meeting. We have a couple items on the agenda. Elena, do you wanna kick it off?
I think she said she went to the tea.
Ceremoniously.
That's
There she is. Okay.
The first one on here, oh great, now my internet connection's unstable. Hopefully you can still hear me. Great, yep. Okay. So for this one, I just wanted to mention, this is not the first sort of thing like this that I've seen before, but basically like a critical metrics regression happened, SIG node got tagged, they didn't notice. I guess like David very kindly like tried to approve the fixes and whatnot, but like they just didn't go through and they sat for like 3 months. We've had 2 releases where all of the like machine metrics from C Advisor have been totally broken. And like no one tagged SIG instrumentation. So and it's not really a priority for Node. So anyways, I just wanted to give people a heads up. As soon as I noticed that that was a thing, I reviewed and dealt with the PR post-haste, and I backported it to both of the affected versions. So it should be on its way to being, like, I think it's fixed already. It'll get probably like released to the next patch release for 119, 120. But I just wanted to like mention this and ask if anybody has any ideas other than me being more involved in SIG node for like preventing this sort of thing from happening.
So I am not sure that thing that you described was an incorrect. I actually, that sounds like that makes sense, right? Because like component owners own their own metrics. Like for us, right, our duty is like more about the shape and form and about like conforming to this certain things. But if someone like deletes their HTTP route to their metrics endpoint, yeah, their metrics are going to disappear. But that's not really on us.
Well, it kind of is, because so like people who had reported this bug were very upset. And if we were doing, for example, like if those had been stable metrics and we had been conformance testing, we would have seen that they disappeared in 119 and it would have been release blocking. But we're not doing anything like that right now. So I don't know if this is kind of a segue into we really need to pick stable metrics and like actually do some sort of testing on it to make sure that we are catching those regressions. But it's kind of the segue into the other topic that I have on the agenda.
I think this makes perfect sense. Like it's just we don't have any stable metrics. So
yeah. Well, actually, have somebody. I wanted to ping them right now. That wants to do it for API machinery. But
so then, do we need to like go and tell SIGs like, yo, you need to pick your stable metrics, or are we actually? Well, this is kind of segueing into the next topic. So before we do that, just to wrap up on this one, it's fixed, yay. I think that we need some sort of strategy to like, because like fundamentally, like when metrics break, people aren't like, oh, you know, Node is incompetent. They're like, Kubernetes metrics suck. So I think it's definitely it's definitely a concern of SIG instrumentation. And I think that if people had tagged instrumentation, it probably would have gotten like, it would have been noticed at a triage meeting. It would have been dealt with post-haste, that kind of thing.
There's a couple nuanced things about the Node one specifically, which make it a little bit harder to tie with the stable things, mostly because they use the custom collectors, which are dynamic in nature, which we explicitly excluded from being able to be marked as stable because things like what probably happened are more apt to happen. And also C Advisor is deprecated. It's been deprecated forever, so I don't think we can ever stabilize those, right? Like, so like there's like multiple like those were supposed to be excluded. Like that was an intent that was intentionally brought out in the cap.
I don't think C-advisor metrics are deprecated.
Yeah, they're definitely not deprecated
Well,
yet.
C-advisor is deprecated though. C-advisor itself, right?
C-advisor
No.
is, yes. Yeah,
Yes.
no, it's definitely in one of our caps.
Okay.
That's kind of what it.
So I'm gonna argue that like we can't deprecate a thing without having a replacement, and we don't have one. So
I totally agree with this, and this is why the cap has never been completed. I believe
Well,
it's the resource
resource
metrics endpoint cap.
Yeah, no, but it's getting there, right? It's now it's no longer under the alpha thing. It got moved last thing to /resource. Or
We did last time we discussed it though. We said that there are not the metrics that are there are not sufficient.
It's not at parity.
For replacement. I don't think we said that we necessarily need parity, but what is there is not sufficient is what we said. I don't think we ever necessarily defined what completion would look like. I guess that would be the best like action point. If we can have parity, amazing. I'm not sure if that's necessarily the goal.
But this can't be done by SIG instrumentation like alone, right? This is like this requires a very specialized conjunction skill set, right? Of node and also metrics.
So I mean, the good news is that I am since I switched jobs within like the past month at Red Hat, I am now going to be significantly more involved in SIG Node and can help with that. Mostly like I was just trying to like suss out, San, I think I agree with your assessment. This is one of those specialized weird cases where the metrics are totally critical and they're super special cased. And we really need to figure out a strategy of like what to do with them, but like it's not necessarily a generalizable one. Like I think I agree with that. But I think nonetheless, it will be good and valuable to talk about what we want to do for stable metrics. And I guess for caps in general, I didn't put a cap review thing on this agenda. I figured we'd wait until next meeting, but so that's all I had for that one. I don't know if anyone has anything to add.
I believe
I think that makes sense.
Cap freeze is the 31st. So we should probably try to get a cap for this by the 31st. Almost sounds like Elena is volunteering to write a cap.
I suppose
I'm not,
continue
but I am meeting with some people to talk about this today. So.
Okay, nice.
I can.
So it sounds like Elena is volunteering to find someone to write this cap. No.
Is there any chance of, like, the C advisor maintainer writing that cap and not me?
I'm not the C advisor maintainer
get
anymore.
David to ping
I
the
don't
C
think
advisor
he's on the call. I did want to point out one thing, just if people are curious about the details of why the regression slipped through. C advisor has its own end-to-end testing that it does before pre-submits. That checks things like the Prometheus metrics and all of the random JSON endpoints it has. But Kubernetes doesn't have tests for the C-advisor specific endpoints because, at least thus far, it's assumed that those have already been tested as part of the C-advisor release process. It does have tests for the summary API, which is usually enough to exercise the sort of, is C-advisor working in Kubernetes question. But this case was just a failure to register a bunch of metrics. And so that was why that wasn't caught in any of our pre-submits.
I mean, this is also why I kind of wanted that thing where, again, I'm going back to the thing that I argued with Frederick about with the metric and the descriptors, because basically if we could have like a thing of these are all of the metrics that were registered, then it would be easy to just dump this in something and to generate, hey, look, these are the things. Here's the metadata. I mean, like you can expose this also through a debug endpoint or whatever, so you can see, hey, these are the metrics accessible to me, or whatnot, right? Like it doesn't
seem to me that this would necessarily have caught this.
It would it would be in conjunction with this, right? Like if you can output, they're not being registered and you can output this and you can save that, then you can.
I think having end-to-end tests for our own metrics is probably the solution.
Yeah, but
I agree.
that belongs to
Like-
Node.
Let's not rabbit hole this too much. I had a quick
Yeah.
question for Han. So you mentioned a date for enhancements freeze. I just checked everything SIG released. They have not released any dates yet. So
Oh, okay.
like there isn't even a folder in the SIG release repo for 121 yet.
Okay, I don't know because I got pinged by David Eads in the morning to look at something, and I asked him when he needed me to look at it, and he said
Maybe he
before
gave
cat
you a
freeze.
deadline because he knows that if he doesn't, you won't look at it.
He said just look at it before cat freeze, and I said when's cat freeze, and he said January 31st or so. Oh, he says he's guessing January 31st or so. So maybe okay, I was wrong. I
was curious because I was like looking to update the dates on our doc for the next release, and like they haven't been published yet. Otherwise, I would have done it.
Okay, so then probably we have more time. So that's great. Yeah.
To wrap up this item, it sounds like to me we should finish up that cap to get whatever we call feature parity in the kubelet metrics endpoint, kubelet resource metrics endpoint. Then I think we can discuss maybe for these particular metrics we can even have a special strategy if we can find something generalizable to mark these as stable, because I think these do make sense to have stable, have a stable. And then I think we can talk about other stable metrics for 121 potentially.
What about the existing ones in the resource metric? Can any of those be elevated to stable? Because then we will have at least something we're checking against. Like we can just flip it.
So we do test the resource metrics endpoint. It's just that resource. The thing to keep in mind is that the resource metrics is a very, very, very small subset of the metrics CAdvisor provides, right? Very basic CPU and memory. The metrics that we're missing are machine metrics, which include topology information as metrics. It includes a really wide variety of stuff that probably doesn't belong in the resource metrics endpoint.
I'm not saying that this is sufficient. I'm just saying that this would be a necessary step, right? Like,
I'm just trying to find the cap corresponding. Is this like an old cap? Because I don't know what it's called.
Resource.
Yes, it's a really old one.
It's pre-stability.
The kubelet
It's
resource
The
metric.
only one that's in the enhancements repo that's pre-stability is the metrics overhaul. There's nothing.
I believe it's pre-caps being in the repo.
It might be in
somewhere.
Node. It might be in Node.
Community
No,
repo?
it might be in Node. No,
Yeah.
pod resource metrics.
Kubelet resource
resource
metrics.
The pod
is under
resource
Node.
metrics, that's Clayton's scheduling one. That's
Yeah.
not it.
Oh,
The kubelet resource metrics one is under Node.
yeah, it could be under Node. Yeah, that's right. It's under Node.
But what Han said, I think, is interesting to at least think about. Maybe we can talk about that once we've fleshed out that cap a little bit more. But I think I could agree to marking the ones that we have today as stable in the.
Yeah, right. We're
like
going this way. These are stable, you can count on them.
Everything else seems additive to me.
Right.
So I think people would appreciate having some resource metrics as stable.
Right.
With the let's say promise to add more.
Yes.
Yes. I just linked in the agenda what I think is the right cap. Can someone confirm?
That looks right.
Okay.
Without having clicked on the link.
Yeah. The author's dash.
Okay. So and I think, let's see. Does the cap metadata say this is? No, it's implementable, not implemented. Well, this is on my list of node caps that need attention. So all 50 of them or whatever. Okay, that makes sense to me. I think that like we have a reasonable path forward there. So then my next question is like, what do we do about stable metrics in 121? Are like we picking them? Are we telling SIGs to pick them?
SIGs have to.
What's the approach here?
SIGs can propose them.
They can propose. Well, they have to maintain their stability. So they are committed to their own, like, they're the ones who have to maintain the guarantees, and that is why it falls on them.
That is correct, but the process is there so that we do at least give them
we also have to
stable
prove it. We
metrics
have
at
to
least
prove it.
one pass.
Yeah, so what's the process?
They follow the documented process
Where is it documented?
in the CAP.
Okay, so there's process in the CAP. We need to tell them about it, and we probably need to send out some sort of communication to the project.
Yes.
And
I would expect, if we haven't already, I would expect this to be a document in the community repo under developer docs. If we don't have this already, we should add it.
I mean, it's just a PR though, right? Like you just mark it as stable, and then you have to tag SIG instrumentation. That's basically. But it will be auto tagged because these are metrics, and you get tagged for metrics, so it'll be fine. But
I still
they can't commit it. They will require a SIG instrumentation thing because of the auto generated stable metric thing. And thank you, Merrick, for that. So it will, definitely we will have to prove.
On a similar note, I think we started a conversation end of last year about a couple of candidates that we feel like should probably be proposed, or at least be reviewed to be proposed eventually. I believe Han wanted to you wanted to introduce a new generic one that exposes storage object count, so that we don't have a one that is specific to etcd. I think we could already add this. I mean, I don't think this needs a cap or anything.
I can add it.
I would, because a lot of people use the etcd one, I would add that one in parallel, I would say.
Of course. No, I'm not going to delete etcd object counts. Yeah, that's not happening.
But then the other ones are obviously API server metrics, and I would even say scheduler metrics are probably a good candidate as well, like scheduling latency.
API server metrics, I want to remove some labels before we make it stable.
That's fine. As I said, I primarily want to pick some to review so that we can make the changes that we would want to make, so that then in the following release, we could mark them as stable.
So
do you want to take care of? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to mention that there was also bounced idea about the Kubernetes reliability working group that will work and introduce more SLOs. So basically, as a Kubernetes, like mainly Kubernetes, but in particular scalability team, proposed and maintained some official Kubernetes SLOs, and looking at their definitions, they're pretty precise, not precise in definition of metric, because they don't define metric. And based on my personal contact with scalability, I guess this is defined, like they have some Prometheus instance that they run and define them, but it's not public. So it would be good to not have something that they have in their own instance, and this is the official definition of SLO, but having them have a company maybe metric and stability status for.
That makes sense. We actually have the Kubernetes mixin that has a bunch of common Prometheus SLOs already. So I think it would only make sense to have all of these definitions in a central place. And this is already one that is widely used in the community.
So
Yeah, but I mean, like there is a Kubernetes 6 scalability SLOs. I don't know if you've seen something.
Yeah, we talked about it like last time, right? We were talking about the request and the webhooks and stuff.
So our is a mess, and I have been trying to look through to actually find the thing that talks about how to make a metric stable. It's split into like 3 or 4 pieces, and the only one that talks about metric stability, which also talks about like static analysis, that one is marked as implemented. But we
It is
have not,
implemented.
as far as I'm aware, like set anything to stable yet. And I don't actually, is the static analysis in place?
It is in place, and that's why we generate the empty list of stable metrics. Yeah, okay. That's where it comes from.
So we should be sending out like the sort of intermediate instructions about how to set the metadata from that.
We should probably have an official doc on how to set a stable metric, and maybe we should. Does anyone know how to create new PR templates? Because stable metric we should probably have our own PR template for stable metrics, right?
I'm sure you can
like
reach
marking this metric as stable, and then or whatever, right? Like
I would say let's introduce process after we've done this a couple of times.
Yeah,
seems a little premature at this point.
Okay. Let me just I can create the storage object count one like pretty easily. So let me just create a storage object count metric. And then I'll submit a PR, and then in a separate PR, I will just upgrade it to stable.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Let's make sure once that it actually works, so we don't define a stable metric that doesn't work.
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, I will test the metric, but it will. I'm literally going to define it in exactly the same way etcd object counts is defined, and it will then.
So Han, can I ask you, is it okay for me to task you with, since you're going to do the testing of this, once you finish your testing, send the project-wide communication to KDev saying, we're doing this release, please participate, here's how?
For what?
For picking stable metrics.
Send what to KDev?
An email. So people
about
are
yeah, that we're setting it. No, I'm going to talk about with API machinery. If the leads there are not okay with it, then I can't do it.
It's fine to socialize it and do the testing and whatnot first. But once like you are once we go and we're ready, we need to give everybody ample notice and like project-wide comms in order to actually participate.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to break anything though, because we're not taking away etcd object counts. So it should be like, even if people don't know about it.
Purely additive. I don't understand why anybody would find this objectionable. It's literally taking
No, they're not. I mean, it adds, you're duplicating a metric, so there's a memory overhead, but it should be pretty minimal because it's 1-2 per resource type. Okay, then yeah. Okay, I will talk to some people, make sure that they're okay with it, and then I will add the metric.
Cool. Thanks, Han. All right. I think that's everything that was on our agenda for today. Happy New Year, everyone. And you get 3 minutes back.
Stay safe, everyone.
Bye.
Next time.
See you next time.
Maybe it will be. Maybe things will be calmer.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
All right. Bye.